Hello my dear YouTuber friends, and I do hope you're all keeping well. Welcome to this new video, and in this one I'm going to be discussing the rolling cache. Does it make a difference to the way the scenery looks in busy areas like downtown London, as you can see here? I'll just show you where the rolling cache is, just in case you don't know. It's in Options, General Options. And in your data tab here, just scroll down, you'll see the rolling cache. I've got mine turned on with 10GB allowance. What it does, it's effectively caching all the scenery into this space, 10GB that I've allowed it, so it's not having to load it each time you fly over it. I've noticed a big difference, and I'm going to show you in this video what it's like without the rolling cache on, so just by default. And then I'll come back over a couple of areas to show you the difference when you've got it turned on. So when you've not got it turned on, when you've got it turned off, and then when you've got it turned on. It does make one heck of a difference. Okay, so let's not dilly-dally. Let's get on with this video. Okay, so I'm at London City Airport in the lovely Hodison livery that Aces Down One created for me. Link to his channel again in the top right, why not? Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn the rolling cache off at this point. So General Options, and then just to show you the difference here, Data. And I'll do this over a couple of areas so you get a better idea, or you get an idea. Let's turn it off and delete the rolling cache files. You get an idea what it looks like in a couple of different places. There you go, it's all deleted now, I believe. Updating the rolling cache, yep. Apply and save, go back, resume. Let's jump into the cockpit, and we'll just take straight off. Live multiplayer, as always, I just enjoy having other people around, just feels more busy. Gives the sim a bit of life, I feel. So there we go. Just get off to takeoff speed. Came a bit too far on the right rudder there, never mind. That's fine. It's not about my flying skills this video, thankfully. And just trim up a wee bit, and we'll stay at an altitude maybe just sub 1,000, no more than 1,000 anyway. So just throttle back a little bit. Now I've got decent internet. I travel between two houses here in London. The house I'm in at the moment has really good internet. I use mobile broadband internet. Link to the video I did of that, last video I did of that. It's great when it works and you've got a good reception. I do in this place. And even when I'm using sort of wired broadband, without the rolling cache on in places like London, as you'll see in a moment, hopefully, unless it goes and proves me wrong, you'll see that buildings don't often render in properly, and it can have that sort of apocalyptic look to it. So we'll keep flying along. I mean, this part, it's getting busy. You can see already that some buildings are having difficulty loading in, but you should see a big difference in a moment. There you go, you can see this part coming up. It's not rendering in very well at all. As it's getting busier, it seems to be struggling. That's because I've not got the rolling cache on at the moment. So basically it's just updating as we fly over areas. Let's just trim down, I don't want to climb anymore now. I can throttle back a wee bit more actually, just to bring myself a bit more level. There we are. I'll stick to the outside view. There, as you can see, it's not terrible. I've seen it a lot worse than this. And the reason I started messing around with this is because in the second house I live in working, I've got terrible reception. It's about a quarter of the speed that I normally get. When I'm flying over places like London, it just never renders in properly at all. But with the rolling cache, as I'll show you in a moment, it makes a big difference. So here we go. It's doing an okay job so far. Pretty much rendering and popping in as we're flying over it. So not really ideal. Okay, jobs so far. I just want to get to a space. It always happens to me where it just fails to render. There's too much to render in. And I've noticed other people, even with decent internet connections, are having this trouble with places like London as well. You can see that ahead of me. It's not rendering in at all yet. Oh, okay, it's now slightly. Let's just keep flying to give you the idea. As it gets busier and busier, it's going to have a much more difficult time to render. Okay, you see these buildings below me just here, not well, now they are. Some are not, some are. As we move the camera around, you'll probably see quite a messy, unrendered area. There we are, that's a good example. That's what I was looking for. So this area here, now it's updating as we fly over it. It's just not ideal though. It's actually holding up better than it normally does, I've got to say. And this would happen now. But you can see even here, buildings here. It can look a bit third world like, for want of a better description. There you go. Those buildings there, like I said, once we fly over them, they do render. But it's just not the best flying. Even when it's behaving like this, it's not the best flying experience. Because as you're looking ahead, it looks a mess. Until it starts to render in. These are not rendering in, you see. Look at that. That's a good example. Now it is. Just not the best experience at all. And if you've got a very weak internet or slow internet, you're going to have, as you probably know already, a terrible time when you're flying over areas like downtown London here. I can see buildings to my coming up there, not fully rendered in yet. It seems to be doing it as we fly over. The building below looks terrible, or buildings below generally. As you can see, it can be a bit messy. But this is quite a good example, because like I said, I've got a decent internet speed here at the moment, in the house I'm in at the moment. But still, it's having trouble rendering in certain areas. Now we've flown over most of it. It's probably rendered most of it in. But as you fly on and fly back and fly around again, it's having to re-render sometimes. As you can see, it just looks a bit messy. It just spoils the general experience, in my opinion. Let me show you now what it's like with the rolling cache turned on. So here you go, back at London City Airport. Now, I've turned the rolling cache on. Let me just show you again. So, general options. Because there's something I want to talk about here as well. Data. I've turned it on and I've allowed it 10 gigabyte. Now, I find 10 gigabyte is enough for a few areas. Places like London, New York, and maybe another area. It's more than enough, in fact. Might be enough for 4 or 5, but it's definitely enough for a few different areas. So I find 10 gigabytes enough, especially if you're only flying around generally a few areas. And what I've done, turned it on, I've actually went for a quick fly around London, which is what you want to do with the rolling cache turned on. You want to fill it, the space you've allowed, so whatever space you allow it, but you want, basically, you've got to allow the sim to fill that hard drive space with the scenery file. So go and fly around a place at least once, maybe a couple of times would be better. Let's get in the cockpit and take off. And I'll show you the difference the rolling cache makes. Now this would probably be better in my other place of work, where my internet's terrible, because you could really see the difference there. But you should see the difference here as well. Gone will be the unrendered buildings, hopefully, as I've already flown over this place. London, that is. Alright, let's just trim up. And keep in mind, London City Airport is an add-on pack. Link to that in the top right. So that's going to look the same with the rolling cache on and off, because it's its own separate scenery file. What's my trim doing there? Going skywards. That's probably enough altitude, in fact. And Don't want to trim down too far now. There we go, that will do. That's enough to give you the idea, so we'll stay low to the ground. Oh, there we go. That was a nice fly past. Why not? There we go. Again, even with the rolling cash off in this part, it wasn't too bad. We're not getting to the busy part of London as of yet. Now, Anal, whatever your name is, it's an unfortunate name. Are you coming back to buzz me again? If you are, you're welcome to. There we go, so all buildings rendered in. And as we get to the busy part of London down here, you'll see gone will be the apocalyptic look, sort of nuclear bomb effects, basically, that you'll normally find in London. And we should have a London we can be proud of now. And keep in mind, London Landmarks add-on pack installed as well. So if you've seen a couple of buildings that are not in there by default, that's why. And it's still updating one or two little buildings there that it missed the first time round. Remember now, the rolling cache is actually putting all these scenery files onto the hard drive. But we're not getting any sort of unrendered buildings, as you can see. They all seem rendered in. It does look rather nice, doesn't it? Gotta say, that's a London I'm happy to fly over. So it's still updating one or two files. There's a heck of a lot of scenery around this part, so you've got to appreciate it. I only flew over it once to fill the rolling cache up, but just with that one fly past of the main downtown London here, it's enough to get rid of any unrendered buildings that we were seeing before. As you can see, doesn't that look amazing? Stunning. Absolutely lovely. So there you go, with London, it makes one heck of a difference. In fact, nowadays I won't fly without the rolling cache off, even with fantastic internet. I don't want to trust areas like this to the internet speed or server speed of Flight Simulator or whatever it may be. Rolling cache turned on, you get a much better experience. Like I say, it may still be, you know, I might have taken a slightly different flight path before, so anything you've seen updating there, it's just updating them into the rolling cache space that we've allowed, that 10 gigabyte. Nothing's unrendered, as you can see. I don't know, to me that looks a lot better. In fact, I know it looks a lot better compared to what I normally get here. This is like chalk and cheese. Anyway, there you go. That's London with the rolling cache off and on. So it's still updating slightly, but we're not getting those nuclear bomb effects buildings. One or two, even with the rolling cache on, that's just one or two buildings with the photogrammetry that can't be helped. But not unrendered, it's just the way Flight Simulator has now translated it to the sim. There you go, well, let's do a fly past of the main landmarks there. Lovely, truly a London you can be proud of. Okay, let's move on to another city. Let's move on now to New York. Okay, so we're approaching downtown New York, one of the most demanding areas to fly around in Flight Simulator. Let's just go to general options again and data tab and turn the rolling cache off. Do it here, in fact. Delete the rolling cache files, updating the rolling cache, apply and save. So it's all turned off now. So as we approach the city of New York, we're relying essentially on the Asobo service to update our files. You can see this is actually live weather at the time of recording. I think the clouds look rather nice. It's not the clouds we need to worry about. Keep your eyes on the scenery. but it's demanding more of the sim, so it'll be interesting to see. I'll keep live weather on with rolling cache on as well, just to see the difference that can make, because now it's having to render the clouds as well as we go along. So it's demanding a lot, New York, and quite a lot of cloud cover, or detailed clouds. I do believe I've got the clouds on high on my laptop. There you go, Statue of Liberty. Ah, it takes me back to my Flight Simulator 2 days on a Commodore 64. One of the things I wanted to achieve on that was to fly from the UK to the US, which I did, and that was all wireframe graphics, but I loved it. Obviously it doesn't even compare to Microsoft Flight Simulator these days. This is now something that we could only dream of before. There we go. So we're approaching a busy part. Let's see how the buildings look. This part's holding up so far. Like I said, I've got decent internet where I am at the moment. So we should see some good results. Simply from relying on the service to update the files. Not looking too bad so far. Let's just focus in on these buildings. Some big bunch of buildings here. As you get to the sort of next part of New York, sort of part in the difference there, that's where it starts to struggle. So far so good. That doesn't look too bad at all. Seems to be rendering in the buildings around us as well. But it's bound to struggle, so just give it a second. As we get to busier parts. So far so good. How's it looking at the moment? Not too bad, not too bad. So this is a fair test for people with strong internet connection. There's not too many people flying around this area at the moment either, which is understandable. It's just after midday in the UK, so maybe the US part of the world just isn't as busy as it's going to get. We'll get a lot busier later, no doubt. There we go, I can see one or two parts that are not rendering in already. Just below us there. It is as we fly over it once again. And as we get to this part, I can see buildings. There you go. That's that kind of nuclear bomb style look it's got going on there. Just not rendering incorrectly. As you can see, these buildings here look pretty terrible. So again, this is with rolling cache off, and that's a good example of what typically you can get in areas, especially like New York, extremely dense, as you can see, busy area, and it's just having a hard time rendering in those buildings. Terrible. Takes you out of the experience completely. Okay, so that was a good example with the rolling cache off. Let's show you what it's like with the rolling cache on. Okay, here we are again, approaching New York, flying roughly the same route, same condition. You can see a lovely cloud formation. Beautiful. I must do an update video on the Microsoft Flight Simulator weather. Perhaps wait for the next sim update, because it's getting pretty impressive nowadays, I've got to say. Anyway, I've got the rolling cache on. Let me just show you general options just to prove all this. And I've flown over this area once and I noticed the difference straight away. There you go, rolling cache on, 10GB allowance. So it's all turned on. Notice the difference even on the maiden flight. Straight away. Especially when you get to that busy downtown area of New York. Doesn't that look stunning from there though? And even these areas seem to have filled out more. Maybe it's my imagination there. It's looking better from the get-go. Now, there seems to be a few more people turned out now. I can be vain and say, oh, is it because I'm on? I don't think so. I think people are just waking up over the server. Or people from different parts of the world. It's just what it is. Sometimes it may be busy, sometimes it may be quiet. What happened to that chap there? Did he just dive into the water? I think he's slewing up and down now. Never mind. Let's concentrate on the scenery. Do be careful, chap. You want to not crash into the Statue of Liberty. Passing Lady Liberty again. Just amazing what we can do in Flight Simulator nowadays, isn't it? In flight simulation. Who would have thought it would turn out like this? I didn't. I wasn't one of the... maybe leave that for another video, but I wasn't one of the positive members when news of Flight Simulator first broke. Because we had to suffer Flight Sim School or whatever it was, which was pretty terrible. But this is just a world apart. This is... anyway, back to the scene. This part looks a bit different. Looks a bit more filled out. Is it just me? If you compare both videos, it does look better already, even in this part. Now, over this part, with the rolling cache off, it wasn't too bad. Now it's nigh on perfect. Everything's look at it. Everything's rendered out. Just drop my altitude a bit there, maybe I'm a bit high. How am I doing with my trim? I'm okay. Lovely. Lovely, lovely. Just looks a bit sharper to me. Maybe that's just me, it just looks like it's more filled out, more rendered out properly. Atmospheric, realistic. Lovely. Now we are flying over a baseball field here. Can somebody inform me which baseball field would that be? Would that be the Mets? The Yankees Stadium? I do love baseball. I should know. Or is it just a baseball field? Is it none of the above? Just a baseball field there as we're flying over it. Absolutely love baseball. Probably my favourite sports game. Even though I'm not from the States, I do love baseball. I do enjoy watching it. Very relaxing and exciting it can be. Right, trim up. Favourite team, I'm not sure, probably, I'm not sure. I tend to change my teams with each season. I go for the underdogs. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. There we go. So we're coming down to the busy part now. This part didn't render with the rolling cache off. Already it looks a lot better, and New York you can be proud of. Look, chaps, rolling cache on. I only flew over it just the once before recording this. You're not getting those nuclear bomb effect third world looking buildings. Try not to use that phrase, I think it's quite some kind, but you're not getting those kind of nuclear bomb effect type buildings. Everything's rendered up. Look. So this is the busy part of New York, and nothing's unrendered from the looks of things. It's all rendered out beautifully. How's that? That is wonderful to fly over. Give this a try. You could try it on Xbox and PC. I find the sweet spot for the rolling cache to be 10 GB personally. It gives you, it means you can fly over a few areas and have your rolling cache filled out. So that's when you next go and fly over them, you're getting results like this. Nothing to lose, give it a try. Leave your comments below if you have tried it and your thoughts and your settings. Give the video a like if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe for more, that is absolutely stunning. Subscribe for more. And I'll be seeing you soon.